Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Andrew Daphne, and I'm the Instruction and Outreach Librarian at the New Jersey State Library. And it is my pleasure to first introduce Lee Clark, who is our Business and Funding Information Center librarian, who will be talking a little bit about just how to access reference solutions after I'm done doing my brief introduction, and then we'll turn it over to Bill Carlson, who is the Customer Success Manager for Reference Solution, and he's going to be giving us a very expansive overview of the new reference solutions and how that can help you in your research. We will be taking questions periodically throughout the program today, so at any time you can use the questions box in GoToWebinar to submit your questions to us, or you can email me directly if you want, and my email address is on the screen. There is a handout or a guide for accessing reference solution in the handouts section of the dashboard. So you can just go ahead and click on that file, it'll download, and you'll be able to use that to help you navigate to have access to reference solutions. There is a survey that'll be prompted at the end of the webinar, as well as in a follow-up email. If you could please complete that. Again, we always appreciate your feedback, and it really does help us as we move forward in our programming. And I've posted a shortened link for New Jersey residents for how to access reference solutions through the Jersey Clicks database suite. You will need, if you are not an authorized user of the New Jersey State Library, you will need your public library card number in order to access that. And once Lee does her spiel on how to access it, I will make sure that in the chat there is the live link, so you have that to click on. Before I turn it over to Lee, one last thing is just a brief overview of the GoToWebinar dashboard for those of you who might not be familiar. This is what it should look like. If you do not see this, look for this orange box with a white arrow either at the top left or right hand side of your screen. That will open and close the dashboard, and it's possible that the dashboard loaded closed on you. Additionally, if you are working in other programs outside of GoToWebinar, maybe while you're waiting and you're not seeing the video or the screen right now, you can look for a blue clover type icon at the bottom of your taskbar. Click on that icon, and then that'll bring back the GoToWebinar overlay, and you should be able to see everything from there. At any point, if you are having trouble figuring anything out, you're running into any issues, you can use this raise hand button here. That'll alert me that you're trying to get in contact with one of us. I will reach out, and hopefully we'll be able to resolve any of the issues that you are having. As I said, there is a handout today, so it'll be located in this handout section here that you would then be able to just download, and it gives you step-by-step instructions with screenshots on how to access reference solutions. And lastly, again, if you have any questions at all, you can submit that at any time using this questions box here. Just type it in, send it off to us, and then we'll be happy to answer it as we stop for questions. So that is everything that I have. So I'm going to turn it over to Lee for a brief introduction on how to find reference solutions.
So I believe I am sharing my screen now. Can everybody see that handout? How to access reference solutions with Jersey Clicks?
Yes.
Okay, great. So this is a handout that is attached to the GoToWebinar that you can download. Again, my name is Lee Clark. I'm the Business and Funding Information Librarian within the Reference Services at the New Jersey State Library. Reference Solutions, which you may know as Reference USA, recently changed its name. Reference Solutions is a database that's available through Jersey Clicks, which is a statewide suite of databases that is provided by the state library through your public library. So anyone who has a library card in New Jersey should be able to access Reference Solutions as well as the other Jersey Clicks databases. So to get to that list of databases, the first step is to go to that website that is at the top. If you click that, it will open up the list of databases available through Jersey Clicks. You can also get to it through your public library's website as well. And if we can put that link in the chat, Andrew, if that's possible, just so it's easy for you to access, but that should be a live link if you open up that handout. So if you click that, you'll come to a screen that looks like this, has Jersey Clicks at the top. The databases are automatically listed alphabetically. So if you scroll down to your second step and see Reference Solutions, so again, you might know it better as Reference USA, but it's Reference Solutions, still kind of in the same spot as it was before. If you click on that link, that Reference Solutions word there, it will bring you to this page where you will have to accept the terms and conditions of the database. So you just check that box at the bottom, hit continue. Pretty basic stuff. And then you will come to this login box where you will have to type in your library barcode. So if you have a state library card, you can use that. But if you have a public library card at any public library, say like you belong to the Trenton Public Library, you can put that card in as well. And it should work. So you just type that in, hit log on. And if everything goes smoothly, if you've successfully logged on, you should see this screen here with the different databases that are available through Reference Solutions. If you do have problems, the first thing that we encourage you to do is reach out to the library whose card you are using. So if you're using your public library card, you want to reach out to your public library to make sure it's an active library account. Sometimes they expire. That happens with New Jersey State Library cards all the time. If you are using a New Jersey State Library card and you have a public library card, try your public library card also, as long as that's in New Jersey, just because sometimes that's easier to renew. If you still have issues, you know your card's active, you can reach out to us at the New Jersey State Library at refdesk@njstatelib.org, and we can try to resolve any issues, because sometimes there are some issues with access that come up every once in a while. So if you do have any problems and it's not your library card, you've checked that, give us an email and we'll try to resolve that for you. So that should be the way that you're going to access Reference Solutions. There are some other ways, but that's kind of the easiest one that works for the most amount of people. So if you have any questions, please put them into the question and answer, and we'll get to those as we go through today's program. So I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to send this over to Bill, and he's going to tell us all about the great resource that Reference Solutions is.
Thank you, Lee, and thank you, Andrew. Andrew, would you give me permission to share my screen? Okay. Is everyone seeing my version of Reference USA Reference Solutions through the New Jersey State Library?
It looks like we are stuck on an old screenshot of your eyes. It looks like, okay, now we see your mouse. We see the GoToWebinar web page in your browser.
Yeah, it looks like it's open to Google.
That's odd. I don't have my GoToWebinar open. How strange is that? I wonder, that is you. Let me try something here. Let me see if it gives me, I'm going to go to show screen. And are you seeing it now?
Now it looks like you stopped sharing.
Should show my mouse moving around.
Yep.
Yep.
Excellent. So we're set then. Sorry about that confusion, everyone. Thank you again. My name is Bill Carlson with Reference Solutions. Lee mentioned that you may know us as Reference USA. We just went through a recent rebranding. And so, but the tool, if you'd used it in the past, the tool is still pretty much the same, still functions the same way. I'll certainly give you an overview and some different ways that you might consider using the information contained within several of our databases. And feel free to, as Andrew mentioned, if you have questions, feel free to put those out there, and we'll answer those on the fly, or I'll stop periodically just to take a break, and you can certainly ask a question then as well. Couple of things in terms of housekeeping. We do have our webinar schedule under here, and then of course our Learning Center. And when you select the Learning Center, I want to point out we also have our own Contact Us. So if you wanted to send through, maybe you had a question about some information that you found when you were doing a search within Reference Solutions and wanted to ask us a question about that, feel free to reach out to us. We have our 800 number listed here, as well as our email address. So you can always get to us with any kinds of questions. The other things that I'd like to point out here real quick before we jump into the databases, a lot of times people may scroll to this point and go right into the U.S. business database and may not see what else is available when you scroll down. For example, our app. We do offer an app to the database, so you would have access when using the app to our U.S. business database module and our U.S. consumer lifestyles module as well. Those are the two that are available in the app. When you have downloaded that app and go to launch it, it'll ask you to put in your zip code. Once you've done that, it'll give you a listing of libraries in your area. You would select the one that you belong to and then put in your library card number and you're in. We also make personal accounts available, and sometimes people think that this is a shortcut to get to us. It is not. In fact, it's an additional step, but when using this additional step, once you've registered and created your own personal account, you can log in and you can save your searches from these various modules. So if you would like to do that, maybe you plan on coming back to a search a month, 2 months later, and would like to save that, you could certainly do so. And then we present you with the most up-to-date data that we have based on how you built your search. So you're not saving the actual records themselves, you're saving the steps that you took to build the search, and then we'll present you with the most latest and greatest information. In fact, there's an update schedule for all of these modules. Currently, the U.S. business database, as we're making our verification phone calls to these businesses across the country, we're pushing out any new updates that we have about those businesses every Thursday into Friday morning. So this is updated weekly, whereas the U.S. historical is technically updated at the end of every year, beginning of the next calendar year. Our Canadian database, business database, that information is being updated monthly. Our jobs and internships, this is being updated every night. So Indeed, this is a relationship that we have with Indeed.com, and they will send us a feed with jobs and internships, and then our process becomes, let's match this job opening or that internship with one of our business records, so that the end user not only learns about the job, the requirements for that job, maybe some additional information about that, they can also learn about the company that's doing the hiring by viewing our record. So certainly gives you more information that you would get simply by going through Indeed.com. This is updated nightly. Our U.S. new business filings, that information is being updated weekly, whereas our U.S. healthcare, our standard white pages, our consumer lifestyles, and the Canadian white pages, those are all being updated monthly. And then lastly is our U.S. new movers, new homeowners. We are fully licensed to bump our database up against the national change of address. So when someone is preparing to move, whether that someone is a home or a business, they fill out that national change of address. We're capturing that information and making that information available in here for those consumers that have moved, not businesses, but for consumers. So we do capture that information and make it queryable in quite a few different ways. I'll show you how, if in fact being able to reach out to people is important for your business or for your needs, you might want to use this particular module because it's going to give you those new people in your community. Great tool to be able to use. I'll launch the US Business module first. And with all the modules, whenever you do that, you're always going to come to this quick search page first. In this case, you could certainly put in a single company and look up that one company. You could even do an executive first name, last name search. Maybe there was an executive that you used to sell products to, and that executive has in fact left that company and has gone somewhere else. You're not quite certain where. You could certainly try and find that executive using that first name, last name search. Hopefully you'll have at least the city and state that they've gone to. We can also look at all businesses in any given city or state and even do a reverse phone number lookup. Maybe you had a phone number that was jotted down, but you weren't certain what business that phone number was associated with. You could certainly put that phone number in and get just that one record with that phone number. I do want to take advantage of this location I'm at to show you a tool that I'll show it to you in a couple of different ways that might be of value to you. I'll just put in Newark. I want a community with a lot of business records. So I'll select Newark. And then of course I just have to scroll down until I get to New Jersey here and then click on that. I'm ready to go. The system will let me view those records and it will only show me records of verified records. We do have unverifieds and we do have closed businesses, but this system, whenever we're in this quick search universe, is only going to show me those verified records, of which there are over 10,000 across Newark. The tool I want to show you is our charts tool. This is a great way to look at a community by the types of businesses that are in your community. It will first present me with the top 7 by SIC code. And if you're not familiar with what that is, SIC stands for Standard Industrial Classification Code. It's an old coding system that Uncle Sam came up with back in the 40s, I believe. And it was a way by which to categorize businesses by type. So all plumbers are together, all physicians are together, all attorneys are together, all dry cleaners are together. You get the idea. The NAICS codes, which when President Clinton was first in office, he signed the very first North American trade agreement between us, Mexico, and Canada. They needed a coding system. The SIC's codes weren't going to cut it. They needed a coding system that all 3 countries could use. So they ended up all agreeing upon the North American Industrial Classification Systems codes. So we have both of those codes in our records, but you don't necessarily need to know those because we do give you the definitions for all of those. So I do want you to know that they're available and they can be searched by if you happen to have 1 or 2 or 3. Obviously, it lists a zip code, sales volume, and employment size. Here are my top 7. First one being physicians and surgeons. And the reason they're usually at the top of the list is because they're all 1099 gals, so they are their own businesses. So any community of size, generally this is how it's laid out, with physicians and surgeons being in that number 1 position, followed by, in this case, restaurants, then churches, then attorneys, followed by automated teller machines, dentists, and beauty salons. If we were looking at my community here in Omaha, Nebraska, automated tellers would be the final one out of that top 7. And I will show you how you could, in your search, exclude any of these. Maybe you were doing a search and you didn't want automated teller records to show up because you didn't want to have to filter through those. You could, in fact, omit those, and I'll show you how to do that when we go to advanced search. I do have some additional information, a full report, and there are 62 pages of that report with all of the SIC codes that make up all of these businesses across your community, along with their definitions, along with the record count for all of those. So know that if you wanted to get to this group of pharmacies, you could just click on this 82 and it will hyperlink you just to that group of records in whatever community you're looking at. Obviously, I'm in Newark. So know you can use that. And I can also change this up. Maybe I'm not so much interested in the SIC codes, but maybe I'm interested in the employment ranges for all of these businesses across my community. I can click on that and notice it gives me this breakdown now of these ranges of 1 to 4, 5 to 9, 10 to 19, and it gives me that percentage that they are making up of my community. So 62% employ 1 to 4 employ 1 to 4 people, followed by the 5 to 9 that employs that are employed, and that's at almost 18.5%. So you get the idea. It breaks it down for you. We do give you a full report down here as well. And then it also gives you some of those larger employers in the area. All of this can be printed off or it can be made part of a PowerPoint presentation. So it just depends on what you might need to do or need to be able to do. Know that you could look at it from this standpoint. In most cases, people want to look at certain types of businesses, and when needing that, that's when we would go to the advanced search. By the way, additional filters goes to the same place, advanced search, and it will clear out that New Jersey information. So I start all over again at this point. The difference between company name that you see here and what we saw under quick search with being able to look at one record, this allows me to do multiple company names by name. So if IBM were of interest to me, I could add that to my list. Maybe Starbucks, which has nothing to do with the banking business, at least at this point in time. I could add that. So I can put in any company that I want to look at by name and then select my geography, whatever's important to me, and I can get all those records. Otherwise, no, we will always give you the name of any company listed in our database. We'll also always give you this executive information as well. But no, maybe you need to speak to just owners of businesses. You could drive in that executive title, and you can either scroll down to the O's to get there, or you can simply begin to type it in here, and it will come up with what we think you're looking for. You can click on that, add that over here to your selected box. And then when you produce your records, they will only have at least an owner present. Or maybe you would accept an owner or a manager. You could make that one of your drivers, and that way you're for sure going to get one or the other, maybe in some cases both. No, we'll always give you that information where we have that available. This is the keyword search that most people are using to find the types of businesses that they might be most interested in. So you don't necessarily need to know those darn SIC codes or those NAICS codes. You could just type in the type of business as it mentions here, like with restaurants, and I'll show you that in a second. The major industry group That is the SIC codes only. And what it does, when Uncle Sam was producing these SIC codes, they were at max a 4-digit number. So they always started off with the first 2 digits. And then when you click on that plus symbol, it then gives you the definition for those 2-digit numbers. If I wanted to go further, I can click on this plus symbol and then get to that 4-digit. See how that's broken out? Those definitions get more finite. My company, Data Axle, we have actually added 2 additional numbers to this to make it that much more granular. So if you only wanted those businesses that their primary line of business is building carports, you could get to just that audience and not see any of these other guys or gals that might be listed. So no, you could get that specific if you needed to. So you can use either or when you're doing your searches. Geography pretty much speaks for itself. I will show you this map-based search tool. Phone information speaks for itself. Number of employees. So when we're making our verification phone calls to these businesses, which we do annually, this is one of the questions we ask of them. How many employees do you have at your location? When they provide that number, and about 72% of them will give us an exact number, you know, we've got 7 or we've got 22. Whatever that number might be, we're capturing that number and we're including that in our record, which I'll show you here momentarily, and I'll show you where you can see that. If you don't see an exact number, but instead you see a range of like 1 to 4 or 10 to 19, etc., that means that we applied that because they did not give us that information in the phone call. And the way we apply it is we look at their peers and then figure an average and then apply that range. Conversely, with sales volumes, we learned a long time ago, you don't ask a private company how much they're making and not have that phone call perhaps end suddenly. So we actually have a team of folks that work on producing the algorithm that supports this sales volume number. And they're using information like type of business they're in, or types, because they might have more than one type of business. Think about Walmart and all the different types of business there. So we're looking at the type of business or types of business, how long they've been in business, where they're physically in business at, because there are going to be variables there. You know, it might be more expensive to do business in Newark, New Jersey, from a leasing standpoint, from the standpoint of utility costs, etc., employment costs for that matter, than it might be in Des Moines, Iowa. So we take all of that into account, along with the number of employees and some information that we get through the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, in order to produce that algorithm. So no, unless it's a publicly traded company, this sales volume is a modeled number, as is the business expenditures. So both of those are managed by that team of folks that produce that algorithm. We'll always provide this ownership information. Maybe in your search you don't want home-based businesses. You could make that a selection, and then you could exclude home-based businesses or only look at types of home-based businesses. Just depends on what you want to do. If you select nothing with home-based businesses, they'll always show up in a geography search if they're in that area. We'll always provide this financial data where that's available, and we do have some special selections here. I do like to point out, if you're looking for newer businesses in a community, maybe your business requires you to reach out to those newer businesses because you want to be able to sell them insurance, or you want to be able to sell them shelving, or you want to be able to sell them some product or service. You could certainly use this selection versus your established and then just drive in those companies that say are a year or two old in whatever geography you're selecting. So you could drive in those kinds of results based on that kind of information. Professionals, I do like to point this one out. It always defaults to all. So if you were doing a search, and the reason we added this as a tool in the database is because we were told that in some cases, patrons wanted to be able to put together mailing lists, and they knew that that would include mailings to doctors' offices and attorneys' offices or CPA offices, but they didn't necessarily want to reach out to every attorney in that office, but rather just one primary. They could switch that up and select one professional, and then when they get their list of records, they'll have only one attorney at that office or one doctor at that office. So it would help with the amount of money that you're spending on that snail mail campaign if you were doing something similar to that and reaching out to those types of businesses. We also give you this exclusion section, and I mentioned when we were looking at that example with Newark, there were ATMs. If you were going to be doing a search, a general search in an area that might produce something that you didn't necessarily want included, like an ATM, you could go in and put in ATMs, search for that. Here's my SIC code and that definition for automated teller machines. You could click on that, add that to your selected field, and then when you produce your results, you'll never see ATMs come up because those have been excluded. And you can exclude anything as it notes here. You could certainly, maybe you were going to look at an entire county, but you wanted to exclude a few zip codes in that county, or maybe a city or two in that county. You could certainly do that. Even previously saved searches could be excluded. So let's do this. Let's do a simple search. We're going to use that keyword search. Don't want to have to memorize any of these SIC codes. By the way, if it were a rainy night and you wanted to get to know the SIC codes, we do have them all listed here. It's quite extensive. It'd have to be a pretty stormy night for me to have to learn all those, but they are available. But I like the keyword search, much simpler. And I'm just going to look at restaurants. I'm going to look at all restaurants, and I'm doing this in part because I would like to get at least a certain number of restaurants in an area. So let's do this. Here's my SIC code for all restaurants, and I emphasize the word all. Think about businesses that their primary line of business wouldn't be that of a restaurant. And I'll come back to that thought that I just left you with in a moment. We also give you the ability, if you wanted to get this granular, and I'll show you where that's at. If I simply scroll down, we do give you the ability, and we've made that an additional number and or an alpha here. We do give you the ability to look at certain types of restaurants. So American, vegetarian, Jamaican, Peruvian, Portuguese, whatever kind of restaurant might be important. So if only getting to Hawaiian restaurants were important, and hopefully you're doing this in Hawaii, then you could in fact forego with this one, and you can always click on it to get rid of it, and then just add in those Hawaiians. If that's how you want it to search, it's up to you. I'll leave and I'll go back and get my all-inclusive one. I do want to show you this. If you scroll further down, you'll see we also give you the ability to get to various chains. And this is actually now a 9-digit. So we've got it very granular where you can get to those specific types of businesses based on whatever your needs are. So know that that is truly available. I'm going to go back and click on my all-inclusive for all restaurants. And then I'm going to do the county. I will. Andrew, do you happen to know what county Newark is in? I'll select my New
Essex.
Jersey. Essex. That was a quiz question for you. Excellent, you passed. I knew it was Essex all the time. Not. There it is. I have that listed. Now I'm going to show you, I'm going to update my count. This is my total number of verified records at this point in time. I'm going to update my count. Now it's only looking at restaurants across Essex County there. And I want to show you this. Couple of things here. Notice I'm only looking at verifieds. We do have those unverified records as well. Those could have been businesses that we never got verified. They could be businesses that had been verified at one point in time, and then when we tried to reach them, which we do annually, we weren't able to get them. We will try for 2 consecutive years to keep a business verified. If we're not able to do so after those 24 months, we move it into this universe and call it an unverified. And then, of course, close speaks for itself. So now we're only looking at those verifieds, and we're looking at them with all SIC codes that they could potentially have as part of their business record. Now, I asked the question, think about those businesses that may have a restaurant in them, but their primary line of business is something else. That's what I'm going to show you here. I'm going to switch it up to primary only. And watch what it does to my total. So it dropped it down to 1,500 from 1,800. So we got rid of businesses like bowling alleys that also have a restaurant in them. You know, movie theaters that offer a dining experience. We got rid of them. Those convenience stores that might have a few tables in the corner of the building and they refer to that as their restaurant. We got rid of them. So we're only looking at those businesses that their primary line of business is that of a food establishment, a restaurant. And I can get to that list right here by viewing those records. Now, what I do want to point out again is the charts. So we looked at the charts when we were looking at all of Newark. Now I'm going to do it by the county, but we're only looking at restaurants again. So no longer will there be an SIC code because we're only looking at one SIC code. So it defaults to the top 7 cities. So Newark comes in first place with 569, and then Nutley down here would be 65. So it gives me that top 7. I can scroll down just like I did before and get to all of those other communities. Maybe I want to get to these 41 that are in Fairfield here. I could click on that number, and just like I did before, it would take me to just those 41 restaurants across Fairfield. So no, you can do that. Again, this is printable or can be made part of a PowerPoint presentation. Let's look at employment standpoint from this example. So in this case, truly almost 75% of the restaurants across Essex County employ 1 to 4 employees. So they are truly small businesses. Some might argue that 5 to 9 is considered small, and even 10 to 19 could be considered small. So certainly you get a sense of the setup or the makeup of restaurants across your county. Now, if we were in my county here in Nebraska, you wouldn't see 1 to 4 until you got down here in 4th position. We have many more that are these 20 to 49, 10 to 19, and 5 to 9s. So it's just the makeup of how these restaurants were established and set up in your community, or in this case, Essex County. So neat way to be able to look at a business by size. And if I just wanted to get to this group of 114, maybe I had some product or a service that I wanted to sell, and I wanted this larger group of employees, I could click on that and get right to that group of 114. So no, you can do that with sales volume as well. Just depends on what you want to be able to do. I can always get back to my results. And by the way, these are all downloadable. meaning you can drop them into Excel, and it does state at the bottom of every page how many downloads you can do at any given time. So I've got how many results? 1,500 results. I could take, let's say I wanted to take 1,000 of them. So I could do 1,000 in 10 downloads, 100 at a time. So to do that, you want to come right up here to company name, to this box right next to company name, put a check mark in there, advance to the next page, repeat that step, advance to the next page, repeat that step. And now that I'm on page 4, which would be my 100, there are 25 records per page. That's how I know it's 100. Not to mention that when I click here, it will give me a quick window with that total. So there's my 100 records. Now I can simply come over here to download. I could always save this or print this. But if I want to download them, and if you're going to take multiple records out, I would suggest that you open up your own version of Excel, because all of my versions are static. You can't add to mine, but if you opened your own and did a copy and paste from mine to yours, you could keep adding to yours until you got to that number of 1,000, for example. Comma delimited is definitely what you want to leave it in if you're going to make mailing labels. Otherwise, you can certainly drop it into Excel. Summary is what most people use. Some people will use custom as well because they only want certain pieces of information output. Detailed would include the entire record, which might be a bit of overkill. So with summary, this is the information you're going to get. Certainly the name of the business, their address information, etc. And I may have to stop sharing in order to be able to show you this. Andrew, are you seeing now my Excel document, or am I going to have to stop sharing and then share this screen?
Nope, we can see it.
Okay, perfect, excellent. So I've got that company name, that executive information, the city state's zip code information, that executive gender, their title. We have its own unique numbering system with each and every record. We've got that location, employment size, etc. So you could have all of this information, and if you wanted to download multiple records, as I mentioned, my pages are all static. So you can't keep adding down here on my pages, but you could simply do a copy and paste from my universe into yours. And once you've done that, you would just minimize your Excel document. Then you would come and close mine. It will leave you right here. Then you just select the word back here. That'll take you back to page 4. Now you've got to get rid of these check marks. Easiest way to do that, instead of doing it page by page, is just select revise search and then view your results again, because it doesn't forget how you built your search. So you view your results again, it leaves you on page 1, it's cleared out all those check marks, then you just come to this box and type in the number 5 and hit enter, and you're ready to go with that next 100 records. So you can keep doing that, and you can get pretty quick at being able to do this once you've gone through this a few times. So it doesn't take long to get that group of 100 and then select my download and do that copy and paste. It's pretty rapid. So know you can do that with any of our modules except for the jobs and internships, that you have to email yourself your results, and you can only email at a level of 6 per email. But with this, it's all 100, no matter what module you're in, except for that group of job seeking options that you might want to download. I'm going to view my results again. So I've charted this. I want to show you this heat map. So this is all before even looking at these records, right? I'm going to select heat map, and this is a density map. And it shows you where all those locations are at. Where it's red, there are a lot of restaurants in those areas. Where it's more yellow, as it is in many of these areas, there are fewer. And then, of course, green is even less. You can print this information off, or you can make it part of a PowerPoint presentation. You could even choose to alter this map if you would want, and it mentions that right here in the upper left-hand corner. If you change it to where it's 300 records or fewer in the zoom on this, this is what will happen. And I'll just click on this plus symbol a few times here, probably at least 3, maybe 4 times, in order to then apply these pinpoints for all of these records. If you see where there's a plus symbol, it simply means that there's more than one location, more than one restaurant at this spot. So here you've got this sushi restaurant followed by another competing sushi location. So no, you can get to that. You can also use this legend if you wanted to. Let's do this. I'll scroll up just a little bit. I'll grab my scroll bar and come down. Maybe I want to know where this Wing Street is at. I can click on that and it will take me to that particular location. And if it were this plus symbol, of course, I would still have the ability to scroll through and see the others that are under that plus. So it just depends on how you want to be able to use this. So know that is available. I can tell you that if you're an entrepreneur and you're looking to, perhaps you're putting together your business plan and you would want to be able to use this information, I can tell you that lenders love this kind of insight. I've had lots of loan officers that have attended my programs over the years, and they all agree with, it's one thing to say, hey, I've got these 1,500 records, or I've got these 5,000 records, or I've got these 10,000 records. But it's another thing to be able to let them see how that looks on that in that area. And I'm doing just a county. We could be looking at an entire state if we wanted to, or several states for that matter. Just depends on how you need to frame your search. Let's do this. I'm going to cheat and I'm going to advance here. I think there are some Arby's in the area, and I like to use Arby's as an example. But in this case, there's not an Arby's, but there is an Applebee's. So I'll use this example. Notice it says right up here, it always defaults to this corporate tree. If I wanted to see the hierarchy, I could use the up arrow, which will take me to one record. That would be the subsidiary. And if there weren't a subsidiary, then it would take me to the ultimate parent. This shows me their entire organizational chart. Arby's is huge. Applebee's isn't quite as big. Arby's has almost 2,500 locations, whereas these guys 3,400 with 2 subsidiaries. So Applebee's is actually managed or owned by the Dine Brands Global Inc. out of Glendale, California. They have 2 subsidiaries. It does list an abbreviation, and that abbreviation is listed here in the listing above it. So it's a publicly traded company. So we track both those public and private, those that have a foreign parent and a US parent, and of course those that are branches. If I wanted to see the other subsidiary that's listed here, I could either scroll down or I could simply close this and get to that other one, which happens to be IHOP. So it gives you that kind of access to that kind of information immediately. And let me go back to that record, and we'll just open up this record for Applebee's. So every record is going to be set up just like this. It'll always give me that location information first, including some information like the website address, the social links they use, etc. Notice I have that corporate tree access right here as well. So I don't necessarily have to do it outside of the record. I can do it from within. Here are those job listings that we're getting with Indeed. So there are several there. There's the industry profile, followed by a brief little business profile, followed by, we have the maps embedded on every single record. So you can get a map, you could print that off, you could use that satellite view, certainly use that street view, just depends on what you might need. That's available to you, as well as the business demographics. So this is a great example. We contacted them in June of this year, and they didn't give us an exact number. Otherwise, we'd see perhaps 55 or 70 or something like that. So we applied this range based on what we know about the Arby's and those kinds of businesses in the area and how many people they might employ. So we applied that range, which does certainly, this information is coming from their 10K reports because they're a publicly traded company. So we're actually getting that from their 10K reports. That's not modeled. We have some information here in terms of hours of operation, etc. That management directory for this location. Company news. We're getting this loaded on literally the fly through Bing. So when you launch this by clicking on that, it will then give you all of the information that Bing has picked up on from various sources. So you've got the Columbus Dispatch, Digital Journal, Yahoo, etc. It gives you a wealth of information here. So whenever you would have access to news articles, I suggest you review this information. Notice that you can even go back in time and look at some that are a little bit older. Not that this is real old in and of itself, but some that are certainly older. So know that that is available. Now, you're not going to see news information on, for example, like Bob's Garage. We're not going to have that information. We're not going to have publicly traded information on this record in and of itself because they're a branch of the DineEquity Group. You could go to their record and get to that stock exchange information. Business expenditures, again, that's that modeled information. We have a little bit of historical information, including historical records. So and remember when Applebee's used to be called Applebee's Neighborhood Grill, and then just like IHOP, that used to be International House of Pancakes, right? So they changed their name back in 12, and then we started obviously making those changes then moving forward. So we do track name changes, address changes, phone number changes if that would be the case, etc. So we have those historical records, and you can open these up. If you wanted to look at this 14 record, for example, what it does is it takes you right to our U.S. historical businesses record. There is a slide here, so you could go back in time to 2007. The farthest we go back on any record, they haven't been around that long, but the farthest that we go back on any record is to 1997. So you could slide back to 97 if you wanted to and look at that record. It's up to you. I can always get back to my original list. And then we have some additional information, UCC filing. So if this business took out a loan and put some stuff up as collateral, that would be captured under those UCC filings. In this case, there aren't any. Followed by nearby businesses because we have the latitude and longitude embedded in the background. And you might want to use this. If you were interested in this Applebee's for a location, there might be another business here that you might want to consider reaching out to as well. Who knows? You know, that's who knows. And then of course I have competitors. So I'll always have a listing of competitors as well based on that SIC code that they fall under. And we know that this business falls under this SIC code right here for all restaurants. restaurants. That's their primary line of business, is that of a restaurant. They do a couple of other things too here. So that's how every single record is going to be set up. Any questions that you might have at this point, either about how I got here or how that record is presented to you? I would also point out that you have the ability to communicate with us if something needs to be changed about a record. Let's say, for example, we'll just do this as a pretend example here. Let's say that you knew this manager, and that the two of you were having a discussion at some point in time, and it was mentioned that they have 78 employees. You could tell us about that. You can come right up here to the top, and this same data feedback button is also at the bottom of the record. You can click on that, and you can come right in here and just go down this list. Oh, there's number of employees. Put a check mark there. If what you needed to tell us wasn't listed on this side, you could always come over here and free-form a note to us to tell us about an update. You can come right here to number of employees, wipe that range out, put in the number 78, send us an email, and then what that will do is that will cause your query to go back to our call team, and they'll call that restaurant to try and confirm that number of 78. If in that call they say, yes, that's how many employees we have, great, we thank them, and we end that phone call, and then we'll update the record. If they came back and they said, oh no, we have 83, well, then we'll put in whatever number they've given us. Maybe that's 83, maybe that's 73, you get the idea. So you can certainly provide us with any feedback, and then we'll call that business back. We'll send you 2 emails regarding this query. We'll send you the email that we received it immediately, and then we'll send you the confirmation of our completion of that within 7 to 10 business days. So know that you can certainly tell us about any record, anything that's in our control. If it were, let's say you were in the jobs module and you'd looked at something in Indeed through that link that we have with Indeed, and there was something incorrect. We can't change anything in Indeed. We only have control over our own records, right? I can't alter what might be in this information about this hostess position. And again, you can always get back to that original list, and maybe you wanted to do another search. You can certainly always revise your search or do a new search and start again. Just depends on how you need to do that. Let me show you some of these tools. I'm going to get rid of the county, and we're going to open the map-based search tool, but I'm going to add a couple other elements. I'm going to say, show me restaurants that also have a web address. And I'll also throw in number of employees. So show me those that employ 10 to 19 and 20 to 49. Those are my 2 universes that I want to focus on. Now I'll deploy the map. So you do, when you're using the map, you want to deploy it last. And you may have to scroll down to get to that. Open up the map. And at this point in time, in the upper left-hand corner, you could be putting in, for example, a physical address. If you wanted to put your business's address there and then do a radius around your address, you could do that. Or it could be a home address. Doesn't matter, as long as it's a valid address. You could put in any given city or state, even a zip code, just depends on what you want to be able to do. I'll just put in Newark, space, and of course NJ, and go, and the system will take me right to Newark. I'm right there. Now I have the ability to use any of these tools that are listed here. If I wanted to draw my own shape, I could certainly do so. And you don't need to use any boundary that might be listed. I could start off in the middle here, and it's a single click to start it, and then I can go whichever direction I want to go. Maybe I want to come down here to Maplewood and then come back over to here and then up to 95, and that's where I'm going to stop. So I would double click to finish it, and then it will calculate how many businesses are in that shape for me. If that's all I need, I would simply say done, and notice I'm ready to give you those 57 results. So it could be that simple. But in this case, I want to show you a few more options here. I can do a true radius search. And this radius, by the way, I'll expand this. Let's back out of this view a little bit. So notice I can go out quite a ways. I can use this radius, and it'll go out as far as 150 miles. So once you've decided where you're going to start, you click it, hold it, and then drag it away in any direction. And notice it says that I've already gone out 10.5 miles here. So I'll just go out to 12. We'll just go to close to 12 miles there. There it is. And there are 647 businesses that match my criteria that are within that 12-mile radius. So if that's what I need, good, I'm good to go and I'm done. I can even, let's imagine for a moment that there was one area in here that I wanted to leave out. I could click on draw a shape, and let's say that I want to leave this area out for whatever reason. It's my choice, right? I can double click to finish that. And then it says that there are 33 results in this new shape that I drew that would be part of the 647. I can double click in that shape, and it will give me this include or exclude option. I could say exclude, okay, and then those 33 will be deducted from the 647, and I'm ready to present you those 614 records. So it just depends on how you need to use this tool. It's multifunctional. But I want to show you some other examples. I have some predetermined boundaries. I better drill back in for this one. I'll go one more. I have some predetermined boundaries. Starts off as big as the state, could be as small as a neighborhood. Let's overlay the zip codes. So there are the zip codes in my area, and then it's a matter of simply clicking in the zip code that might be of interest, or maybe I have several that are of interest. Maybe these are the 3 that are of interest to me for whatever reason. I've got my results listed here anywhere from 6, 11, or 4. And if that's all I needed, I can say done and then get that total of those records. So know that you can use that. And you can also use, I'm going to return to my tools here. You can also use a drive route. By the way, if you're interested in using this drive route along transit opportunities, you could certainly do that, because I've tried it with both rail and bus, and it works for either. I'll select drive route, and I'll show you a local example. I'll go from my community of Omaha, Nebraska, to a community that's about 55, 60 miles away from me, Lincoln, Nebraska. And I'm going to select a buffered route. Notice in this case, the maximum it will go is 15 miles. But what that means is it will go 15 miles north of whatever route I've selected, or whatever route the system has selected, and 15 miles south or east-west, whatever way the road is running, right? So I'm going Omaha to Lincoln. I'm going to say a buffered distance of 0.3, in other words, meaning just 3 blocks on either side of that street. I can create my route, and bingo, there it is. I've got 78 results along this route that match my interest. And the really cool thing about this, I helped a gentleman in Wisconsin use this. He had put in, what we did for him was he was looking at certain types of manufacturers that would be along this interstate system. And this is exactly what we did. We put in those SIC codes, or those definitions for those SIC codes. And then we went to the results after having mapped that. And then we came back to the map, our density map, and we put all 18 of his results. I have 78, but we put all 18 of his results on the map. And the way that you do that is simply center your map first, and then you can begin clicking on that plus symbol, and that will begin to drill in. And you'll want to give it a little bit of time, as I'm doing, to kind of process what you've asked it to do. In this case, clicking too quickly can be disruptive. And notice I might have to recenter my map a little bit just to make that adjustment. I'll go ahead and do that now. And then I'll keep drilling in, and notice it's slowly but surely breaking out all of those locations between the community of Omaha and Lincoln. I'll do it one more time so that I can have both cities in the map. And here are all those results all the way down to Lincoln. So believe me, there are restaurants in this community of Waverly, in this community of Greenwood, you know, and Waverly's definitely close enough. Greenwood might be more than 3 blocks, which is why nothing is showing up in that case. But these places all have those because they're within that 3 blocks north, 3 blocks south. So they're all showing up as options. And I can click again on that plus symbol. Here I have a Taco John's there, followed by, oh, there's an Arby's. So you can always use that or the legend. This gentleman was actually going to take and download this and then upload it to his map so that he could just drive from one location to the next. So great way to use the database depending on what your needs. Again, this is all printable or can be made part of a PowerPoint presentation. Any questions? I'm going to get back to my results here. There's those 78 results in my area. Any questions in regards to the business database? Otherwise, I want to show you in the time that we have remaining some of the other modules that you might be interested in using. But first, I just want to make certain that you don't have any questions here with the US business database. Okay, let's do this. Reference Solutions is in fact my home key. So if I wanted to get out of the US business database altogether, I can click here and it takes me back to this home page, and then I can select whatever other modules I might want. I do want to show you this real quickly since we were just in the US business database. Now these are those filings. The information isn't nearly as robust because we haven't verified them yet. This is kind of like a holding area until we get those new business filings verified, and then we make a complete record and put them in the US business database. We will house them in here for 1 year. So again, just like with the other module, when I was in the US business database, I always come to a quick search. Most people go right over here to advanced search. Again, these are the different selections that you could possibly make. If you wanted to look at 2 or 3 companies that are new to your community that you've maybe heard about, read about, learned about through someone, you could certainly do that company by name search, just like I showed you in the US business database. I'm going to do this. Let's do, and we'll just do the city of Newark. So I'll select Newark. And in this case, when you're doing a city search, just type in the name of the city, select go, and then it'll give you a definition of all the Newarks that we have. So I'll select Newark, New Jersey. And then in this example, I'll select date ranges. Notice it always defaults to the last 6 months. I could do it as recently as last week. It does say up to 2 years, but that's been changed. It's only 1 year. In fact, this 2-year option will be falling off here. Let's say I wanted to know about the new businesses that have been filed for in the last month. I could make that my driver. So the system is set up to look now at just Newark in the last month. 105. So let's look at those. This is what you're going to see with any of those new business filings. Let's look at, we'll look at this global media. I'll click on that. We've got that location information. We don't know how to classify this because we don't know what this really means, right? We can't even make an assumption at this could be a newspaper for all we know, or it could be a little TV network. We don't know what it is. So our job becomes getting that verified and then being able to give it a primary SIC code classification along with that description. Right now, this is kind of like a catch-all. We do have, in this case, a phone number by which to call verify them. We may find out that this address is actually a home address. But when they've got the filing through the Secretary of State's office, they identified this as a new type of business, doing business as global media, and that it's a commercial site. Nothing else. We don't have any executive information or how many employees they might have. In some cases, that information could all be filled out, but in this case, it is not. So our job becomes reaching out to this business, getting it verified so that we can add it to the database or not add it to the database. I can tell you, I have a niece who has a business. She's been in business in Chicago for probably 12 or 13 years. She is not listed in our database. She has a car to get to her appointments. She does have 5 other employees, so there's a total of 6 of them. She has a car to get to her appointments, and she has this great client list of all these clients that she does a range of things for. Everything from an event planner, planning parties, weddings, whatever kind of event, to house sitting, to taking children to a doctor's appointment because mom and dad can't get away from work. So she does all of those kinds of services. She's not listed in our database though. She couldn't walk into a bank and get a lender to probably give her $100,000 because she wants to venture off into another realm against that client list she's got. Great list, does her a world of good, but it's not something tangible. So we haven't listed. She has a website, and her employees in her car to get to appointments, and that's it. So she could fall madly in love, not decommission her website, move to the Bahamas, and nobody would be the wiser. It's a little tougher when you're invested with a location. So a lot of our businesses will be home-based, and you might say that she could be considered a home-based business, but she's truly not, because other than maybe answering her queries from her home, she's on the road. She's somewhere else. So she's not listed in our database as a business. So I just want you to understand that not necessarily everybody who shows up in the U.S. new business database will become a viable record that we include. We also might call this a land of fishes. Now, you might assume that that is probably a business that sells fish or fish food, or maybe they sell not fish or fish food, but maybe they sell fish. Who knows? Our job is to find out what that really means, right? What kind of business they're in, and then get that added. So we may find out in our phone call that this A Land of Fishes doesn't plan on opening their doors really until next year. we're not going to include them in the database at this point in time because they're not in business. So there are some variables that I wanted you to understand, but that's the look at any of our business records and how they're kind of set up from a new business record standpoint. Not nearly as robust as what we saw when we were in the US business database. You could search by filing type or location type, so know that you could do that as well. Any questions in regards to the new businesses? I don't see any listed there, so I'll click on Reference Solutions. Let's take a look at US Consumer and Lifestyles. This is a very popular one, especially if you're a business that needs to be able to reach out to consumers about your product or services. I have a cousin who's in Florida. He's actually in Gainesville, Florida. And when he gets a new customer, and he has a tile and carpet cleaning business, when he gets a new person in a neighborhood where he doesn't have many other customers, he'll use this database to locate that person and then does a search from that person's record. I'll show you how you could do that. By the way, what I'm going to show you can also be done in the US Business Database and many of our other modules. I'm going to forego the quick search and go right to advanced search.
There is a question, Bill.
Oh, there is a question. Excellent.
Yeah, it's what browser works with Reference Solutions?
Great question. So I'm in Chrome. I'm in Google Chrome. Sometimes I might use Firefox. Other times I might even use Internet Explorer. If you have an issue with one browser, it's real okay to try it in another browser. I know a lot of the phone calls that I get from patrons that are having an issue, I'll ask them how frequently they clear out their cookies and cache, because we do use that. So if you don't do that very often, if you clear out your cookies and cache, that oftentimes alleviates the problem. You're able to get in and use it as you would, as I'm doing right now. Great question. So the consumer lifestyles data, with our business data, we're getting that from sources like, we still use the phone books these days to get that information. But then we also have a variety of partner relationships, including what I mentioned with the USPS, but then we're call verifying. We're not call verifying consumers. So we're getting this information through memberships that people have. I was not in the database when I first moved back in to Omaha, but I became known as a dog lover in the lifestyles information because I was purchasing my dog food through Petco, and I had a PALS membership. So we're getting it from memberships, magazine subscriptions, surveys that people have completed, warranty cards, even credit card processors. So we're not capturing what amounts of money they're spending or anything that's sensitive. Only thing we want to know is, are they purchasing, for example, like dog food? I get that question, do you know what dog food they're feeding? I don't know what dog food they're feeding. I don't know how many dogs they have. I don't know if they have happy dogs or mad dogs. I just know that they happen to purchase dog products. So this is how this would work. You again can select whatever geography you would want to do. Let's say that we'll just look again at Newark, and I'm going to select Newark and say go. There's my Newark, New Jersey. I'm going to change it up so it's only going to show me one record per address. And I'm going to select my lifestyles categories here. And here they are in the center. We'll look at those dog lovers. So if I were interested, maybe I had a product that I wanted to be able to let dog owners know about that would somehow enrich either the dog owner's life or that of the dogs. I can select dogs, and then I can update my count. And notice I have 777 across Newark that are dog owners that score, and we have a scoring system. It's 0 through 9, but we will only show you records of people who are scoring a 6 to a 9. So they're active in whatever category. I guarantee you there are more than 777 households with dogs present, but those are the ones that we know about that are scoring in the 6 to 9 range. So this is what their records are going to look like. And notice right off the bat, it gives you this information in red lettering about any of the phone numbers that are listed here. They may be on the do not call list and should not be used for solicitation. And I'll add to that. They should not be used for solicitation unless you have the appropriate hygiene done on those records, which means you could download this list of 777 at 100 records at a time, just like we talked about with the US business database. You could download that information and then you could send that list to the do not call registry. They will do a certain number of area codes for free, and then they start charging you beyond that. But you are responsible for the compliance of all federal, state, and local laws as it relates to adhering to the do not call registry. So let's look at Amy's record. So I've got this address information for Amy. Everything that we've seen about Amy's household is she's probably married, been in this home for about 17 years. And I mentioned my cousin would use the database to find more people like Amy in a particular area. And this is exactly how he does it. He will go into this show within, and notice it can go out miles, a maximum of 5, but it can also do blocks. He does 0.1 block. So 0.1 and enter, and it pulls up that new list, of which there are 623 neighbors within that 1 block radius of Amy's address that he could, in fact, what he does is he puts together a mailer and then he sends that to those people that live around Amy's home to let them know about his product or his service, which is that of a tile and carpet cleaner. So that's how he gets new business in areas where he doesn't have a lot of business currently. So he uses the database for that all the time. I can always get back to my original record for Amy here. I'm going to get rid of this information in there. So we've got that address information, followed by, of course, that map, followed by that neighborhood information that we get through the Census Bureau. So we have that estimated home income, home value, and then we make adjustments to that. And then those lifestyle indices. So the only reason this record came in is Amy scores in that range of 6 to 9 as a dog lover. If we went to do another search, let's say for gardening, Amy may not show up in that other search for gardening because she doesn't score high enough. So I do always caution people, a lot of times people want to look up maybe a relative. I had a librarian, I used to cover the state of Florida, and I had a librarian contact me from Florida one day, and she said, Bill, I looked at my mother-in-law's record, and it said that she's into this technology and entertainment. And she said, I can tell you, my mother-in-law is not at all interested in technology or entertainment. And I've known this librarian for a long time, and I said, is it possible, Vicki, that she has bought products that are of a technology or entertainment nature for your children? And she immediately thought, and she said, Yeah, probably my children and my brother-in-law's children. And so we've solved that mystery. She was so perplexed that her mother-in-law would have any interest in this that she thought for sure that had to be wrong. Well, in fact, it was capturing that information, but she just looked up that person by name, not by their interests. So that's why that showed up. So
Bill, could
every
you talk
record,
about the email?
oh, certainly. So
Yeah,
we do
about the
have,
email availability.
yep, we do have, and it notes it here, and it would note the same information on our business records as well. We do have email addresses. When you are interested in this, you can select more information, and then it will direct you to contact us. We sell email addresses. You can imagine if we put them out there for public consumption via this venue, how quickly those email addresses would probably need to change because people would be inundated with emails they had no interest in. So we do offer email addresses for a fee. You could certainly contact us if that were something you were interested in, either for consumers or for businesses. And I always tell people that with businesses, what you can do to circumvent, maybe you just want a few, because we have some minimums that they require for purchase. So let's say that you just wanted to get maybe 20 or 30 email addresses for businesses. I would select businesses with web addresses, and then I would go into those business records independently of one another and look to see if you can find email addresses that way. It's certainly, it's going to take some time to do that, but there's no cost other than time. When it comes to consumers, you would always have to contact us. There'd be no way that I would be aware that you could back into email addresses for consumers. Great question. So that is something that is available. Every record is going to be set up just like Amy's was. I do have the heat maps. I do have the charts that's available for that. Of course, I can download this information. I do want to show you this. This is a call that I typically get if people aren't aware of this consumer snapshot. So whenever you select anything from this consumer snapshot section, let's go with age, marital status, and children. And I'll select, and I'll get rid of the dog lovers, and we'll look at all records across the city of Newark, of which I have 92,000. But now I'm going to narrow it down. I'm going to say, show me these age ranges and show me singled with children present. How many records do I have now? I have 4,860. So when I view those results, no longer am I going to see those records. The only thing we'll let you do at this point is either chart it, put it on a matrix, or on a table. So, and here's how that would work. Let's say that you wanted to go with, you could even do estimated income, age, and children present against an area code, a zip code, or a 3-digit code for a zip. I'll show my summary, and this is what you're going to get. Estimated household income and incomes, because it's going to get quite, remember, it's going to look at all those ranges that I selected. It's going to give you the age ranges, that there are children present in these zip codes, and this is how many records apply to each of those. So that's as close as we allow you to get when you've selected anything from that consumer snapshot section. We just don't want to be that company that shows up on Sunday night on 60 Minutes because people have gone to libraries and gotten maybe sensitive data, and that's what we consider all this to be, sensitive data. So any selection from here can only be, it could be just one selection, could be just income, doesn't matter. When you make a selection from there, it will no longer present you records. only the ability to chart, put that on a matrix or a table. And we do have an omission section on this one as well. So that's how that particular tool would work. You could certainly use this. This is a great tool, like I mentioned, that my cousin uses it for. So certainly know that that's available, and if that would be something that you would want to use, you have access to that. I want to show you, time has just elapsed so quickly. I despise how quick. Did we start at, no, we started at 11:30 my time, 12:30 your time. I guess I am out of time. Know that all the tools that I showed you are in fact available in all these other modules. So I would, if you want to use the new movers, new homeowners, this can be a great tool that you could certainly have access to. The difference between what you see with US healthcare here and what you would find with a doctor's office in the US business database is the healthcare is going to show their primary specialty, how many patients they see per week, do they have a secondary specialty, the school that they graduated from, where do they have their license at, etc. So it'll give all that pertinent information about the doctor. This is more about the address. Any questions before we conclude?
Thanks, Bill. Yes, if anybody has any questions, please, you can type them in the questions box on the dashboard, and we would be happy to answer them. So we'll wait a few minutes and see if we get any in.
I hope that this has given you a great introduction to how you might use the various modules that are available in the database. And obviously you're going to be accessing all that information through the state of New Jersey's Jersey Clicks.
And while we're waiting for some questions to come in, I just want to say thank you, Bill, for that. That was very in-depth for the, really, you could spend a whole day talking about reference solutions or more.
Exactly, yes.
Yeah. So if you have questions, please put them in the questions. If you think of something later on, or you're trying to do stuff in reference solutions, please don't hesitate to contact the state library. We're here to help you at that reference ref desk at njstatelib.org. You can always email questions there, or call us, even though we're not actually at the library. You can leave a message, just include your email address.
It looks like you've done a fantastic job, Bill. I don't see any questions coming in, so.
Don't hesitate to ask if it's 5 minutes later or 5 hours later. We're always here to help you.
All right, well, I would like to thank you, Bill, for a fantastic presentation. Thank you, Lee, for providing the guide on how to access reference solutions, as well as the rest of essentially the Jersey Clicks databases. And if you have any questions, please contact the New Jersey State Library. We'd be happy to help. Everybody be safe, be well. Thank you for attending today, and hopefully we will see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.